This is part 2 of the overview of body systems lectures. We were on number 5 in this figure of the endocrine system. The adrenal glands are these little triangle-shaped glands that sit on top of each kidney. There we go. So number 5 are the adrenal glands, and they produce adrenaline, which is also known medically, it's called epinephrine. Then there is number 6, which is the pancreas, and it produces insulin and glucagon, which are hormones that help regulate blood glucose levels. Number 7, this is in the female side of the figure, is an ovary, which produces hormones like estrogen that help regulate the female monthly cycle, reproductive cycle. And then number 8 is the testis, which produces testosterone to help regulate males' secondary sex characteristics, as well as the production of sperm. Some examples of hormones. The hypothalamus, which is in the brain, produces hormones that control the release of the other hormones. So they produce what's called releasing hormones or inhibiting hormones. And a lot of these hormones produced or released from the hypothalamus actually target the anterior pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is divided into the anterior and the posterior. But the hormones of the anterior pituitary also are regulatory hormones. So they will stimulate the release of hormones from another target area. Then the posterior pituitary produces ADH, or antidiuretic hormone. This hormone helps you to retain fluids. It stimulates water reabsorption, which means the water goes back into the bloodstream. So that causes you to retain fluids if you're dehydrated. And then the oxytocin is produced by the posterior pituitary, and it stimulates uterine muscle contractions and the release of milk by mammary glands. So it's especially important during labor. The anterior pituitary releases several hormones: thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, gonadotropic hormone. Prolactin, and growth hormone. So these are just a few. There's actually a couple more that are produced by the anterior pituitary gland. So what would happen is the hypothalamus would release a hormone called a releasing hormone, and that would stimulate the anterior pituitary to release thyroid stimulating hormone. And that would stimulate the thyroid to release thyroid hormone, which stimulates the thyroid gland and your metabolism. So this is a pathway that includes the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the thyroid gland. And that's how it works. The hypothalamus works together with the anterior pituitary to control the release of hormones from certain target organs. The adrenal cortex produces stress hormones like cortisol and epinephrine. The gonads produce estrogen and testosterone. Gonads are testis and the ovaries. And then the mammary glands produce milk, the soft tissue and bones that are stimulated to grow by growth hormone. And then here we've got thyroid. The thyroid produces T4 and T3, thyroxine and triiodothyronine. There's a misspelling there. It's supposed to be an N between the I and the E. But T4 and T3 are fine. These are together called thyroid hormones, and what they do is they stimulate metabolism. Calcitonin is the hormone that's released by the thyroid gland that lowers blood calcium levels. So it causes the bones, the kidneys, and the intestine to absorb calcium from the blood so that the blood has lower calcium levels. Parathyroid gland does the opposite. It raises blood calcium levels. So this is just a few examples of hormones. We have lots more in the human body. Now we're going to move on to another control system, the reproductive system. So the control systems so far have been the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the reproductive system. And this is because they control other body systems and they control processes in the body. The other type of body systems are cell maintenance. They help to maintain the cells that our body is composed of. So looking at the male reproductive system, we have the bladder, which is not part of the reproductive system, and the rectum, which also is not part of the reproductive system. Bladder stores urine, the rectum stores solid waste or feces. But if we start here with the testis produces sperm in the seminiferous tubules, and the sperm end up traveling out of the testis into the epididymis, which is where they become able to move. And then they travel up the vas deferens to the urethra. Okay, so right here is where the urethra starts. And the urethra is part of the male reproductive system as well as the male urinary system. So the urethra travels past the seminal vesicle, which the seminal vesicle produces a component of semen that combines with the sperm, and then the prostate gland, which produces some chemicals, especially that help to make the semen more alkaline or basic, so that they can counteract the acidic conditions in the vagina, so the sperm won't die and when they're released. And then the bulbourethral gland, which is also called the Cowper's gland. So all three of these glands, actually, the seminal vesicle, the prostate, and the bulbourethral gland, produce components of semen. And so they combine with the sperm that's released into the urethra from the vas deferens. And then all of that semen and sperm travels down the length of the urethra to the urethral opening. And then you have, of course, this is the penis, and then you have different components of the penis. The tissues are called corpus cavernosum, corpus spongiosum. The scrotum, of course, is the sac that holds the testis. Okay, I think we pretty much covered that. This is a table that I'm not going to read from, but this is a table that covers the main components, the primary components of the male reproductive system, where they're located and what they do. I will go over the prostate glands, seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral glands because they help produce the components that form semen. So bulbourethral glands are what produce the pre-ejaculate. This helps to lubricate the urethra so that the sperm can pass through more easily. The prostate gland secretes an alkaline fluid so that it can help to neutralize the acidic conditions in the vagina. And the seminal vesicles produce most of the semen, and they contain basically nutrients because the sperm need nutrients in order to move, to swim. So proteins, enzymes, fructose, which is a sugar, mucus, vitamin C, flavins, phosphorylcholine, and prostaglandins. So these are chemicals that are needed by the sperm, basically. Okay, this is the female reproductive system, and basically the gonads are the ovaries. The egg is released into the fallopian tubes, and that is where it is. This is where fertilization occurs. The sperm will swim, of course, into the vagina, and then will fertilize the egg here in the fallopian tubes. The egg is released by the ovaries. The ovaries also produce some hormones like estrogen and progesterone. The uterus is also known as the womb. This is where the baby will develop. It's where the embryo will implant in the wall of the uterus. The internal and external reproductive structures of the female are, the bladder is here, and then the uterus is here, which is why when women are pregnant and even after they've had a baby and the uterus is swollen, it will put pressure on the bladder, and they often have problems with incontinence or, having to urinate more frequently. The cervix is the opening. It basically separates the vagina and the uterus, and that's the opening that has to dilate. They measure how much it dilates or spreads before the baby can be delivered. Okay, and then any of the ones that are like labium majora, labium minora, these are like the lips that surround the vagina, and the clitoris is analogous to the male penis. Okay, I'm trying to move this, sorry. Okay, this is a list of the structures that compose the female reproductive system. I will just concentrate on the ovaries and what hormones they produce. They contain the oocytes, or the immature eggs, and it doesn't say the hormones, but they produce estrogen and progesterone hormones that help regulate the menstrual cycle. This is just a list so that you can understand which structures in the male are homologous to structures in the female. And you probably know that the male gonads are called testes and the female gonads are called ovaries. So these are analogous to each other, the testis and the ovary. And then I'm going to skip some of this stuff, but well, the penis is analogous to the clitoris in the female. And that's good enough. Sensory system is part of, or sometimes called the special senses, is part of the nervous system. So it is another control organ system. It is going to be composed of sensory receptors. If they are exteroceptors, it means that they receive information from the environment. And if they are interoceptors, it receives information that's of conditions going on inside your body. So there are vision, hearing, touch, equilibrium exteroceptors, and then there are also chemoreceptors. Gustation means taste, and olfaction means smell. And these taste and smell are chemical senses. This is how we interpret chemicals from the environment. And then interoceptors include receptors that measure blood pressure dropping or going too high, and changes in glucose and pH levels in the blood. This is just a picture of the olfactory nerve, which is connected to olfactory receptors in the nasal cavity. And these olfactory receptors receive information from any chemicals that come in with the air that you inhale. So they're going to, olfaction is smell, so that's going to help you. Those signals are going to be sent to the olfactory nerve, which is right here, and the olfactory nerve will take that information to the brain where it'll be interpreted. And then you will have your sense of smell, recognition of your sense of smell. This is a picture of the retina of the eye. And I do want to show you that you've probably heard of rods and cones. These are the rods. These receptors are sensitive to, these allow for us to have night vision. And then these are the cones, and these allow for us to see, during the day. They only respond to light, the color vision, basically. But this is a better picture, I think, because it shows the retina, which is the back of the eye, and this is the area where these receptors are located. So here's another, here's a cone, and these are rods, And the rods are for